in the meantime, we were now moving almost 300 meters per second in that direction. And then I heard them scramble to Mirage 3s. And got airborne, and I heard Ollie Holmes' voice, and he said, we do not have armor piercing 30mm cannon. We only have soft exploding heads. But they were still going. Nobody had thought, no aircraft was loaded to be able to attack armor. Because everybody had thought that the ground operations over Kasinga would have been over so swiftly, the mopping up, that before the time was gone for that Cuban armored base to react to that, we would have been gone and out of there. So nobody had planned anything against armor. So there I was in the air. I had every third rocket armor piercing, and I was then on the way to Kasinga. Almost as I turned into Kasinga, I had the first opportunity to speak to headquarters. And then I asked permission, or I said to them, I'm close by and I have the ammunition for that. So then I was cleared to go. So then one could see on the ground that there was a huge fight going on. There was anti-aircraft tracer flying in all other directions, from all directions. It just happened that the attack force was concentrated because as I aimed in the dive, I could see the two Mirage 3s ahead of me in the dive. So we were there almost at the same time to concentrate our force, which is always a good thing. Then I could see the ineffective explosion of the 30mm shells on the tanks. And I said to Ollie over the radio, leave the tanks alone, I have armor-piercing rockets. And then they went onto the troop carriers and the gun carriers, and they caused havoc amongst them. I then asked for Ernie for 12 rockets at a time, and I started attacking the tanks, which went very well. But with the Buck so steady, it was easy to shoot active rockets. It wasn't a difficult thing. So we were going on the tanks and took 2 tanks out. I just want to say something, that the sight of an armored vehicle exploding and burning, possibly from the fuel and the ammunition they carry, it's quite impressive. It burns like a furnace where you just pushing the oxygen in. And there were a number of things we had to attack, and then there was one anti-aircraft position that was giving me a lot of trouble, which the navigator had been watching and I not. And then I started paying attention to all the tracer coming our way, and I thought I'd do another attack on that. And we took that out. Then things went quiet. The remaining tanks moved off into the thick bush, and I couldn't see them, and I was just circling. And then the helicopters were landing. Quite a sight to see this big gather of helicopters landing in the rescue zone where they were taking out the paratroopers. And as they were landing, the one tank came from underneath the bushes and started firing at me. I could also see that his shells were exploding beyond the helicopters. And I could see that they were landing in a slight depression in the ground. And he could not depress his gun low enough to fire exactly at them. But he was moving forward, going to go into the depression. And then I realized, there's nothing that I could do then. And I came from behind him. He was not aware of me, and I thought, well, this is it. Easy target. I went shallow angle and went up close and fired, and nothing happened. By then you had to pull up very rapidly not to fly into the tank. And I went around, and I am embarrassed, but I was swearing at the end. And I said to him, you've got the switches wrong. All the weapons switches, all the weapons management in that aircraft is from the rear cockpit. The pilot only pulls the trigger. And he was adamant that he had the switches right. So I said to him, get the things right now. And we went around for another attack, and the same thing. I could not explain it then because I was quite sure I still had 12 rockets left. In fact, I had asked him to give me 6 and 6, not to fire 12 at a time. And then in the second attack, when there was nothing, I, again also without thinking it through, in retrospect I must say that I didn't think, oh, this is now the thing to do. I just kept the aircraft low and then added some power, and I was hoping to go over the tank very low at something almost at the speed of sound to have the sonic shock wave onto the tank. I did that, turned around and came back at him from the front, and he was in fact firing at us. And I thought, how silly you are, that you would think to hit us. And I did the same thing again, more planned possibly this time. And it worked. They stopped and they stopped firing at the helicopters. So I did that. Some complaints from Ernie because sitting in the back of the aircraft, it's difficult to judge the height, and we were very low to intimidate. And for him, it must have seemed something silly. So we did that until the helicopters were able to fly away. Later on, there was some talk. The helicopter pilots phoned from Ondangwa to Grootfontein and said, oh, where's Dries? Thank you very much. And explaining how I was flying over the tank at 5 feet or something like that, which was, I don't think so. I don't think it was 5 feet. But it had to be low. Unfortunately, those phone calls, very well meant, had caused a problem. I was asleep after all the